Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sandra Sheffer, president of the Democratic Women's Club of Greater Broward, and we're back at it again. I know it's the night before Thanksgiving. Please, we want y'all to be safe. They're telling folks not to travel, but people
Stay
are still
home.
traveling.
Stay home.
Stay home. Eat with the people you know, and if they want to come to your house, make sure they bring you that COVID test that says it's negative
and a
before they
mask.
coming out.
Please wear a
And,
mask.
absolutely wear your mask. See, he ready, right? He ready. Wear your mask, social distancing, because we want everybody to make it to Christmas. We want grandma, the kids, everybody to make it to Christmas. So please be safe. Take this very seriously. We're here. We continue on to talk about what's happening with the Democratic process. We're still dealing with some election aftermath. We're going to talk about it. One of the things the president-elect and the VP-elect are doing is bringing out, telling us who their cabinet choices are. They brought out like a list of people that's going to be part of their economic development plan. Today we have J. Chris Ford. He worked in Obama's second administration with their economic development plan, focusing on small business administration. But Nikki's is going to go in and give you more of his bio. He's going to come here and give us some real good information. We're going to talk about, there's some brothers trying to put something together where they can do banking, do like a bank for Black folks to give money to small business owners, which is something Dr. Ford is familiar with, and we need to talk a little bit about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about this, what's supposed to be a lame duck session for Mr. 45, but he doing all kind of stuff, right? I think he's gonna try to burn the crib down before he leave. And if he doesn't physically burn it down, he's gonna make it real hard for when Biden-Harris administration come in. He's gonna have them digging themselves out of a hole in order for them to not be able to put all the plans that they've already have in the works on the forefront and just kind of slow them down, because they're gonna have to be cleaning up a whole bunch of mess that he's making unnecessarily. But we feel bad you gone, bruh. Won't have to deal with you after January 20th at 12:01 p.m. You're out of our life. All right. Okay, so Sandra Sheffer, president of Democratic Women's Club. Narnique is gonna, we should get Carol to introduce herself next, and then Carol, she's here every week, our criminal justice extraordinaire. We're gonna talk a little bit about that too. She's gonna introduce herself, then Narnique will, and because she's gonna introduce us to Dr. J. Chris Ford. All right. Carolyn.
As always, I am Carolyn Wheeler. I am really excited about tonight because Dr. Ford is one of those nerd people that I like that creates policy, which is 100% my interest, and the reason why I am currently pursuing my doctorate at Nova is specifically for the purpose of creating policy that will directly, or that I'm hopeful will directly impact the Black community and the justice system and our relationship with the justice system. That is my passion. That is what I think about all the time. That's where my energy is. I'm finding a way to heal the Black community through justice policies, and then once that's done, to figure out a way to bridge the gap between the Black and Blue community. As always, I am grateful to be here tonight. Happy to share the space with these dynamic and intelligent women. And again, happy to be here with Dr. Ford.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here too. Shoot, I mean, it's been a long 8-9 months with COVID and the person that is no longer the president. I just can't find a way to say something appropriate. I digress. So I am Narnique Grant, as Sandra stated. I'm a former candidate for school board, still passionate about schools, still going to work hard to make sure that our underserved communities and our underserved babies get what they need. And I am also on this wonderful panel with these dynamic women, and we've added this great person that I can't wait to read his bio. And we're gonna just go in because we're running late anyway. We ran in late, so I'm gonna start. Dr. J. Chris Ford is an experienced serial entrepreneur, researcher, and expert in building inclusive innovation ecosystems and programs for intellectual property, monetization for federal agencies, universities, corporations, and investors. He's gonna break that down don't get caught up in the words. Currently, Dr. Ford is a program director, research faculty, and consultant on multiple federal grants and contracts for Florida International University, University of Houston, and private businesses. From 2012 to 2017, Dr. Ford was a technical and technology transfer advisor to the U.S. Department of Energy, DOE. Key results were analyzed and
Analyzing
of DOE's patent portfolio for novel monetization strategies, i.e. 20,000 patents with a present value of $77 billion, assessed and aided more than 40 ventures for technology transfer and commercialization, projects for DOE ranging from cybersecurity and information technology, renewable energy, energy storage, oil and gas, and biotech firms. Led the design and implementation of DOE's lab to market initiative. And served on the President Obama's executive second team committee for economic development. Woo woo. Most recently, Dr. Ford served as a policy volunteer on the Biden-Harris campaign. Dr. Ford received his BS, MS, and doctorate in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech and BS in mathematics from Morehouse College. Morehouse, woohoo! Currently, Dr. Ford resides in South Florida with his wife and daughter. Ooh, I got through all of that. All right, Dr. Ford.
Me at a degree in mathematics. Who gets a degree in mathematics? But
I don't know. But I'm telling you.
Engineering. Yes. Okay.
That's a lot.
In engineering, mechanical engineering, a degree in mathematics. Really? Let me tell you, I struggle enough.
Okay.
When Lynne mentioned her linear algebra class, and
right.
I'm done. Okay. I'm not getting a whole degree in it.
Listen.
Yeah, so
that was a mouthful, but I am excited, Dr. Ford, to hear from you. I want to tell you how blessed that we have you here, a brother who has done all these amazing things and the degree you've gotten. So we know that there is possibilities for us. People of color, Black people. So we're just excited to have you. Please break down your background for everybody, even though I read it. But I just want people to really get to know you and know who you are. So we're excited. Go on.
All right. So first,
he the person that Marco Rubio was mad about, talking about Biden got all of these Ivy League smart people on his team.
That's Dr. Ford.
So, hey, Biden's not playing around. If y'all, I'm so impressed. He's not playing. I was so impressed with his leadership on the campaign. A well-run oil machine. He's going to be a fantastic president. He's an excellent leader. So I want to first shout out to Black women. I love Black women. Married to a Black woman. Got a raising a Black woman, my daughter. So I'm a successful Black man that still love Black women. So I know y'all touched on that a few weeks ago, but but it's important, the family and everything I do, and I say this so hardly, it's about family. As Black folks, we got to make sure our success stays home. I'm a big fan of my wife, who was on last week, Tay. She's an entrepreneur. She hates business, but she is very good at it, by the way. I tease her about it. So she can be fantastic. She just is a little shy. She's comfortable in her current successful track. But anyway, I digress. So in short, I'm the Black guy that has been sitting behind all these white rooms, listening, working with them, and strategizing on a plan of reparations. I'm just say that outset. So let me just tell you exactly.
Reparations?
Let me break it down for you. So, and if for those who are radical in thought, if you ever read the book, seen the movie, The Spook That Sat Behind the Door. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm thinking. No, it's not to overthrow the government. No, it's not to be Nat Turner and we going on and killing a bunch of race wars. No, what I'm saying is, if we break down racial injustice at its core, it's about economics. And from slavery to what we're dealing with right now, bottom line is Black folks haven't had enough money, haven't had enough control of our political agenda, and by and large have been so oppressed that we can't even imagine what the future needs to look like and how we should treat each other and do business with each other. And so what I looked at and how I was, as stated, obviously I love science and math and science has been easy for me my whole life. It's just one of those gifts, but I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. And so I looked at from a career trajectory, how can I become a very effective entrepreneur in a space that has high growth? So technology, you think of the technology we want right now, imagine all the businesses that have come together to allow us tonight to be able to be communicating and broadcasting this throughout the world. Think about Facebook, where this is being streamed right now, is worth $20-30 billion right now.
And so, hey, brother, had we got some stock in Zoom just in January and February, we'd be good.
And probably still should probably invest in Zoom and all these other tech stocks. And so what my career is about right now, where I focus the last 10 years, how do you get Black folks being able to get access to technology? And then with the already entrepreneurial brilliance, instead of us starting entertainment companies, instead of us starting sneaker companies, instead of us starting janitorial services, why can't we create some technology that will give us a competitive advantage that we can leverage federal resources from the government? There are tons and tons of programs. Literally, the government spends $140 billion a year in technology, research and development. They create no less than probably 10,000 new patents a year as an agency. And right now, our taxpayer dollars are paid for it. There's over 100,000 patents sitting there, not being used, available to be commercialized, available to be used. So I'll give you an example, maybe to break it down in very, very simple terms. You know, you probably open up your iPhone and you open up the music app. That music app has an origin with a Black entrepreneur. Dr. Dre, Beats Electronics, about a little more, almost 10 years ago, he started that with Jimmy Iovine, and he wanted to have a better sound system. So he didn't create all the technology in Beats Electronics. Dr. Dre didn't create any of that. What he did, though, he found folks who did create that, Monster Electronics, who created all the sound engineering that goes in. He licensed that technology, threw his brand on it, got all the athletes to support it, created a streaming app service, and then sold that for $3 billion in 2014. That's the motto. If we can replicate, imagine all these kids around here, instead of them creating music, if they can create businesses with apps that help you get access to technology, or take that creative energy another direction, and then get all the experts. We have 14% of Black folks have degrees. We're getting degrees at a pretty good rate. I personally know 30 Black folks with PhDs who are friends. The problem is we don't have enough Black folks with goals to say, we want to make a lot of money off our knowledge. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. We want to get jobs, but we don't want to get a lot of money from our knowledge. And so I right now I work at FIU and some things I do at University of Houston. It's very simple. I run business incubators to teach Black folks how to do this type of business, how to get the money, how to get prepared to get grants, to get prepared to get the venture capital, do this. We all can do. I've done it multiple times. I'm not quite where I want to be, but I'm working on it. I'm doing well, provided for my family well. My wife is happy. And so the things is, we need to have an ecosystem of Black folks. We need Black investors. Instead of all those brothers who and hate to say it this way or stereotype our people, but I look at those brothers who selling drugs, who can develop sophisticated supply chains and distribution systems. If you train those brothers how to sell these types of technologies, there's no reason why we can't have billion-dollar Black-owned businesses. So I'm convinced, here's the last thing I'll say, I am convinced that white institutions have neglected and under-resourced us, but they have created a monster that's just sitting there. We got a lot of Black talent, a lot of Black dollars that's not properly organized. I think there's no reason why we can't set goals that would create $3 or $4 billion businesses in the next 5 to 10 years through this type of model. So it's a great opportunity. It's the blind spot right now of white supremacy issues. They have neglected us, but we have so much Black talent, so much wealth that we can create. So I'm convinced, I've bet my career on it. I bet my career that we can change this. And hence, I believe the Biden campaign, last point I'll make, the second to last point I'll make, I said that a second ago, the Biden campaign, everything we worked on, he said that it must have a racial equity policy point, everything. You can go look at the website, that was legit. Every policy that I worked on, about 4 or 5 pieces of policy with the campaign, we had to give data, strategy, and structure, and policy and appropriation strategy on how we're going to make racial equity happen and make it real. So look forward to hearing more I'm going to discuss, but I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, no. Can I just tell you I love us? Can I just tell you I love us? Because we need brothers like Dr. Ford and sisters like us having these conversations on a regular basis, because I think that we don't see it. And you're right, they did create a monster. I think we just don't realize it. And we need people like you, people like Carol, people like Sandra, that's going to make sure that this is something that is always on the table, that's always part of the conversation. So I just love us. So I think Sandra had a couple of questions and Carol did too. So we're going to take it away with Sandra first.
No, so he just made a lot of points. I'm just like, well, where do I start? Where do I start? Because I tend to take notes like when folks are talking. And one of the things you were talking about, like the entrepreneurship, you know, my parents are from the islands, right? And my mother didn't have a job until I was 10 years old. And that's, you know, that's once we came to the United States, because, you know, they've always just had a business, and, you know, that she was able to support us and we lived well. And you come to the United States and we're actually, told or taught, like when we go to school, like you do all of this so you can get a job, not to go outside and create your own job, right? And I just have to, and I'm gonna just use myself as an example. So when I graduated from law school, I got a job, right? But you know, I have a problem getting to work on time, right? Like I don't like going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's always a thing. Like I would get a job and I would, you know, make it as close to 8 as possible. And I ended up starting my own practice, not on purpose. It was just that I didn't want them to make me get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning or like 9 o'clock. And then if I don't get there, be mad that I'm late. And I'm like, well, focus on what I'm doing. I'm doing the work. Like, you know, be glad I can do the job. Why are you bothering me about these 10 minutes, right? So I ended up having my own practice for like a very long time, right? Like, you know, and I mean, I have a job now because, you know, for the benefits, but really, we go to school, we get all of these great degrees and do all of this stuff, but we're taught to go to work. And if you're making a certain amount of income, and if you tell your friends or your family, I'm gonna quit my job to start my business, they're gonna be like, why are you gonna give up your good job, right? It's like we're discouraged from doing it, right? I just did it I just kind of had to. Like, I mean, I literally was getting into so much trouble because I wasn't getting to work on time that, you know, I just quit before they fired me, right? But luckily, I had enough people that, you know, clients that wanted me to continue doing their work that I was able to build a practice out of it. So is that something that you see, is that we're discouraged from having businesses on our own? And then if this is something that the Biden-Harris administration want to do, how are they going to first, you know, get the word out there that there's grant and there's money out there for people to do this, right? That's the first thing, right? And then what kind of security or safety net they're going to give folks to kind of do that, right? Because it's like, you know, a lot of times we'll go to the bank, try to get a loan. They're not going to loan us no money. You know what I mean? They be like, you want how much to do what? No, right? That, you know, so we have to save the money ourselves or get the money from our friends in order for us to start our own businesses. But if we could get some sort of support, a loan to just give you a, you know, make sure, you know, you're not going to get a notice on your door because you can't pay your rent because you haven't generated income yet. Is there something that they're going to have in place to give money to have people to really just step out? Because yeah, you can step out on faith, but you know,
no,
it's that money though. You need some money to be stepping out like that.
Yeah, no, faith without works is dead. We don't want people out here broke. So you got, before you step out there, you know, and leave your job. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a Black inventor, saying this thing, I know Black inventors. It sounds crazy to say, but I was talking to a Black inventor. I talk to him every week, and I won't say where, but this brother's brilliant, probably has 6 or 7 patents, no reason why he shouldn't be a multi-millionaire billionaire in the next 5-10 years. And we were just having this very discussion on yesterday. And he, you know, he's struggling, he's brilliant, he can't flex his brilliance at his job. And so we're working on how to commercialize his technology and get him going. And he's ready to leave. He's ready to leave his job. But I said to him, he just got married. He has children. And I said, brother, listen, and I've lived this, my wife will testify. You have to be smart as a man to provide for your family first, and then strategically, gradually ramp up your business until you get it properly funded and situated. So some tactical things and strategic things the Biden-Harris administration is focused on. Two really big policy emphasis that has been focused on. Number one, there are grants right now that's already appropriated and is appropriate every year, specifically the Small Business Innovation Research Grant. It's a $3 billion per year program. And right now, only 4% of Black-owned businesses actually even go after or awarded. So it's a grant that gives your business $100,000 to $200,000 to work on your prototype. If you do well, you get to second phase, you'll get $1 million to commercialize and grow your business. So there was a grant program. So Biden's going to do a better job of helping Black-owned businesses get more access to those types of grants and resources. The second thing that he's really focused on this. He touched on this in his most recent interview on MSNBC. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a big emphasis of helping not only local governments, but businesses be supported through the transition. So he's working on some funding packages and some additional loan programs to SBA to support some of those, now forgivable grants, loans. So that's a really big emphasis. But the one thing that didn't get talked a lot about on the campaign that I think is going to be a game changer. He's going to create a funding mechanism for what's called business incubators and accelerators. These are organizations that will help entrepreneurs work out issues with their ideas, get access to capital, get access to consultants to help them work out issues on their business, such that before you take that leap and transition from your 9 to 5, you'll have a support system around you that will help you figure out how you're going to commercialize and grow your business. The thing I'm really focused on and really made sure of that a lot of these funding sources will be in Black communities or with universities that can set up these types of incubators to service Black community and those who could be available. But it is a journey. As an entrepreneur, you have to not only manage your business journey, but your personal journey to make sure that, I hate to say that, I always tell the stats to every entrepreneur I talk to, whether our incubator or personally, the divorce rate right now is 50% for everybody. For entrepreneurs, it's 75%.
Wow.
So I just warn folks, you have to do a good job of managing your personal life as well as your business strategy. And you have to have your partner, your significant other, well a part of that. Right? And that's why one of the things I'm really sensitive to, I said at the outset, we have to do these things in a family context, because it's or in the village context, in the African lexicon. I don't move out on things in business without at least mentioning to my wife what I'm thinking about. She kind of gives me a good parameter that's her comfortable. I keep my 9 to 5, but I split my time between businesses, and activities. But you have to manage that. If you don't, what does it profit you to gain all this wealth and then you're alone and then to maybe tease y'all, then you're now trying to marry someone outside your race. But anyway, so.
You right.
Conversation about that 3 weeks ago.
You're right.
Sometimes they have those assets. They can let y'all sit around and be
right.
great. You know what I mean? They don't have all that other stuff to worry about, and it ain't fair. You know what I mean? So,
but you love what you love. I'm not saying, but I believe in Black love, but it hurts my heart when a lot of brothers, that sister that was with them while they were struggling and grinding, and then they get a divorce, and then they marry. Anyway, that breaks my heart.
You see how we love brothers, brothers like y'all deserve all our love. You see how you right. I love it. So I'm gonna circle back to what exactly you were talking about. So these business incubators that you speak of, they're not advertised, and I know that you talked about it being in the university level. Is there something outside of the university level where someone who wants to, there's a couple of people that come into mind right now that I know that are trying to be entrepreneurs. Some of them who've spent some time in jail, some of them who are trying to just get their life back together. How can these people be able to be part of this business incubators that you speak of?
Business incubators is somewhat new, relatively speaking. So I just kind of as a disclaimer, and you're right, they're not well advertised. I run a couple, and we do a poor job of advertising. We're improving that. But I'll tell you things I work on specifically right now. We're building a South Florida business incubator network. So this type of entrepreneurship we support. If you want to start your own incubator, we'll give you the content, the materials. By early next year, we'll even give you some way you can even manage your incubator system. So one thing we've done to help get communities get access, I've partnered with a couple of municipalities to help get it into their strategy. Broward County, we're in the process of negotiating a partnership. Sister Carol's, soon to be Dr. Wheeler, Nova just got that big lot right on your campus. Nova just got funding from the county to do some major incubator work. These things are going to be opening up here next few months. But the short of it, I advertise some things. There's some things in South Florida, a handful of incubator programs in South Florida. Probably the one that's probably most popular is right over there, Venture Cafe, right in Overtown. They're doing some cool things, a lot of cool meetings there. It's a sister that runs that, and she's trying to do some groundbreaking things. And then the other sister that used to be Black Tech Week is now Black Innovation Center. She's doing some cool stuff. Felicia Fletcher, she's doing some cool stuff. But the short of it, you can connect with me. I'm definitely building that we're working on building out, just as a state incubator network, just so folks, the goal, the vision that I have for FIU next 2 years is that if you're in South Florida between Miami-Dade and Broward, you should be able to, in your local community, be able to get access to. And by the way, just to advertise our incubator, we're launching, our next cohort starts the end of January, week of January 25th. And if anybody want to do this type of entrepreneurship, they're more than welcome to apply, and we'll see how we can support you. But unfortunately, there's only a handful of ones I can even recommend here in South Florida. There are some national ones that come recruit here. You may probably haven't heard much. 500 Startups, Y Combinator, they've tried to Techstars. These are some famous ones in the world. But it's unfortunately, and this is going back to Biden, Harris campaign, they recognize that issue you bring up, Narnik, that they're just not well advertised, and oftentimes they're not well resourced. And so one thing we're doing with our incubator program, we're going to be launching a venture capital accelerator program where you literally can get trained on what does your company to look like to receive venture capital. You'll talk to investors themselves, and they will tell you before you spend too much time going down the wrong direction. They'll get you ready, and then we'll support you in getting you ready to get the grants that typically they want to see you awarded before they put investment in.
That's awesome.
I have a few things. The first thing is how I have someone in my watch party asking for contact information for you, Dr. Ford, in order to gain access to the information that you're talking about.
I'll say it and I'll type it. So my email is JA4, J as in James, A as in Apple, at FI Ford, like the car, JAFORD, at FIU.edu. And you can shoot me a note. And then the website, M2M, letters, M, number 2, M.arc.edu. And I'll put this in the chat and you can blast it out to your respective pages.
Perfect. And then I wanted to go back to something that you said originally. You were making a connection between white supremacy and Black ingenuity, and I would like to know exactly. I wanted you to go into that a little more because I kind of had an idea of what you were talking about. I had a whole visual of that, and I just kind of wanted to revisit that. You were making a connection. Did I misread that? Yes.
So just to recast your question, you're saying so the connection between white supremacy and kind of the nature of why, and make sure, good matter of fact, repeat your question. I'm a man. I can't do two things at once. So
white supremacy and Black ingenuity, and you were talking about how much our genius was part of this whole dynamic.
Yeah, so I'll give a story and then I'll give some stats and facts. So one of my favorite stories about history of Black ingenuity and inventorship, a brother by the name of Thomas Jennings was the first Black person to get a patent in this country, 1830. First Black guy to get a patent. He was a free brother. He was free, wasn't in slavery and enslaved. He got a patent. He had a dry cleaning business. He got a patent for a process to more effectively dry clean clothes. So he made so much money off the patent and business that he was able to go buy his entire family out of slavery. And so that example, this is brother during the height of Jim Crow and oppression, he was able to take advantage of ingenuity and genius and entrepreneurship and bring economic liberty, literal liberty to his family. What I have observed, and I'll give some facts and stats. So, segregation had amazing impacts on how Blacks got introduced or could work in the federal government. So in the federal government, up until probably the early 20th century, the federal government, AT&T Bell Labs, as an example, they funded all the great technology developments through World War II. And what happened, because Black folks weren't working in those labs or didn't have access to all the technology, by the time all the technology that was invented that created now the internet age, information technology, actually the renewable energy space actually can find its origins in the 1940s. Black folks were excluded. So you had all this brilliant talent. So if in the 1950s, you probably went to Howard, you probably went to Morehouse. And then for grad school, you probably had to go to Howard or another Fisk for grad school. You couldn't get access to Bell Labs or all the technology created by the federal government. So you got a job working as a faculty member at those universities. You didn't get a job at Bell Labs. You did get a job working on all that great technology. And why I mentioned Bell Labs, think all the information technology we're using now on Zoom call, Zoom video, all the information on our cell phone traces its origins to Bell Labs. All the cybersecurity technology that really laid the foundation during the military and the creation of the military industrial complex, we were kept out of that. We were kept from that. And so it wasn't until probably the 70s and 80s that we start to have significant employment in those spaces. By then, all the technology and the businesses were started. Intel was started in 1972. Microsoft was started in 1975. And so all these companies are now brand names and now become billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. We weren't a part of that. And so what has happened, because we created this different educational arc where we work with brilliant Black faculty members, we don't have an ecosystem of Black wealthy or Black ingenuity folks who have been entrepreneurs that can mentor the next generation. And so what has happened, we have all this brilliant Black talent. I talk every day, we have plenty of educated Black folks who can do all the tech work, but they don't have the mentors who can put the capital in to help them get that business idea off the ground. And so, and then last point is, if you look at how venture capital works in Silicon Valley and in Boston, New York City, it's a, I hate to say it this way, it's a good old boys network that we're just not at high levels a part of. And when we are, we crush it. Robert F. Smith, he got that one opportunity, and now it's one of the most successful private equity companies in the world. And so we have the talent. We just need access. We just need to get put in the game.
But don't you wish you graduated in 2019? Isn't that when he paid off all their student loans for the Morehouse graduate?
Well,
right?
I had scholarships, so yeah, but I would have.
People like, I know who that is. Yeah, he the man that paid off all the student loans for the class of 2019 at Morehouse.
I need him to visit. I need him to do that same thing for older Black students at Nova. Okay,
I would like for him to start investing, and I think he has. I think he's done a couple of investments, but I would like for him to be into some of the stuff that you're talking about, Dr. Ford, because I think it's important that we have someone like him pave the way and really open it up for us to get those opportunities. I'm just, I'm at awe listening to you and knowing how many spaces that we untapped for Black people. And it's unfortunate. And so I'm really glad that we're having this conversation.
I want to revisit my question, because I feel like there's something that hasn't been said. And so I really want to go back, and I apologize for this, Dr. Ford, and you did answer the question, but I feel like there's a missing piece. I really believe that, there's a joke. I don't know that it's a real joke, but there's some inappropriate conversation about, a Black man in the bathroom next to a white man. And this is the reason why, to a white man and a Black man at a urinal next to each other. And this is the reason why white men hate Black men. I feel like there's the same dynamic with Black intelligence. I believe that there is a direct connection between this whole idea of white supremacy and the intelligence of Black folks. It's almost like that, like what I just talked about, you're at the urinal and that, doing what y'all do, what Black men do. And then you got this white dude at the urinal next to you, and he can't even, do what he got to do, because he can't let you see that he's not working with the same equipment that you're working with. And I really do believe that there is a connection between. That's the reason why they historically have stolen all of our ideas. This is the reason why Thomas Edison, and I won't pretend to know all the details. You probably know them by heart. This is the reason why Thomas Edison gets credit, for all these things that he did. And we know darn well that it wasn't Thomas Edison that was doing it. It was Thomas Edison's slave, you know?
Right.
And so I just believe that there is a connection between, you know, white supremacy, because we know that white supremacy, there's nothing supreme about them. And all these 500-pound guys at trailer parks, you know, waving Confederate flags, there's nothing supreme about them or their bloodline. But there is a connection between how they view themselves, or how they, you know, want to view themselves, in connection to what our natural intelligence, our natural talent. And for some reason, when you were talking about that, that's what I envisioned. When you're making this connection between white supremacy and Black ingenuity, I sincerely had this image of white people historically and systematically stealing from us. How many things have we not gotten credit for because it was stolen from us? Or how many times did the white friend say to the Black person, "Oh, give me your idea and I'll present it for you," and then next thing you know, that person's getting credit. You know, that white person's getting credit for that. So you know, am I wrong to believe that there's a connection between the two? Am I reading too much into that? Or
there is two sides to it, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about both sides. So we'll just start with the kind of what we talk about a lot in media, the what I call the white. It's not a term, the white privilege, or I heard a scholars to call it the white priority, the white priority. The white prioritization in the United States, and different ways we can argue that point. So we keep forgetting. I had to remind a business colleague who's not Black about this fact. And when this country was founded, we were 3/5 of a man, a human, and that citizenship was always in question. It's just, I mean, even the things that the basic civil rights of being a human, being a citizen, having equal access to opportunity has always been in question because of our founding. So that history, I'll give you an example to support some of the points you've made, Carol. The gentleman that invented the transistor. So the enabling technology for this stuff right now is the transistor, semiconductor technology. So this gentleman worked at Bell Labs, and brilliant mind to imagine a way to amplify electrical signal and create all this these communication technologies we have now. That gentleman, tragically, at the end of his life, got into a field called eugenics, that he tried to support a narrative that Blacks were inferior. And some of the brilliant Black minds in the 70s really debating him publicly on these issues. And so unfortunately, embedded into America is this notion that Blacks are inferior. And whether it's overtly discussed or now it's more covertly kind of inferred, it is a fact of our history. And what I have observed, it has become, unfortunately, a part of our identity in this country, both as what white people, the so-called, and white is a very, relatively speaking, new term in terms of in sociology, but it has, a lot of folks have not faced, white folks and Black folks, how much they get their identity from this social racial structure called race. And so, you know, I've been practically in meetings and been asked by both white people and Black people, well, how did you come up with this idea? I've been faced in some academic settings where it was discouraged to have too many Black faculty members working together. These are real things. And so the cloud of white oppression, even for folks who are the most progressive, even for the folks who want to be part of the solution, it's a fact, it's a part of the fabric of our country. So those things are real. How do you measure it? Which comes into the discussion. It is a inexact science. There was a brilliant sister who recently tried to calculate what has been stolen, to your point, what has been the missed opportunity because of white supremacy policies. And she calculates into $45 trillion is what has been lost and stolen. So stolen by means of untapped potential of Black businesses, lost in terms of the economic tax base that was lost by the country. And so the flip side of it that we don't talk about in terms of if we put a mirror up as Black people, we have been so harmed by this oppression that it is hard to get us to work with each other. And that's something we don't talk a lot about. And what I try to do is be an olive branch. And so we have those instances where, yes, things were stolen from us. And now, because of, unfortunately, some of us start to emulate the behavior of the oppressor, we now are stealing from each other and not working together. And so what I try to kind of bridge the discussion is how do we own our right now? How do we own both what we've been through as a people, but then how do we chart a path forward? Because the things that, man, I intentionally mentioned reparations at the beginning of this. To me, this is what I'm talking about is the only feasible pathway to real reparations. I don't see Congress enacting any policy that will come anywhere close. They may give us a hand-waving study of reparations to appease, but I don't see there being any real policy or any real money being spent on reparations. But what I do believe, though, is the hole in the system, because they, this white supremacist behavior, matter if people are overt or covert about it, they have created this huge gulf of economic opportunity. I've calculated what is one of the stats that was announced in the bio. It's at least a couple of $1 trillion of opportunity untapped right now. Right now, at least 2 trillion that's untapped and related to all this technology, all this innovation that there's not enough white people to go after, not enough immigrants to go after. So if you looked at the 45 million so brilliant Black minds in this country, we can get a piece of that, a serious piece of that. And there's real value in that. So it's a very hard discussion to how do you calculate white supremacy, and then how do you design solutions and strategies in context of that? It has been, unfortunately, a poorly supported economic discussion. It gets too polarizing. All these liberals and conservatives get lost, and at the end of the day, people just are mad, and nothing gets done.
Yeah. So okay. So we're gonna talk about a couple things, right? Because you said a lot of stuff. I got all these notes, and I always try to find a way to just make it all make sense and put it together, but I'm just gonna have to deal with it in bites and pieces. And there's a question in the chat that we're gonna get to in a minute. But you said like a couple of things, right? You talked about the capital to get businesses off the ground, right? So this is gonna go into a conversation I had with Narnique. So there's some people out in Atlanta. I think a young Killer Mike, and I keep forgetting who the third person is, but they're trying to set up like some sort of business banking opportunity to provide like bank loans and business loans, small business loans to people of color, African American, Hispanic, whatever. They need like $20 million to do this, right? Because this is the number that they're looking for. I think they got like $3 million right now, right? And to me, that's insane. I'm like, how you can't, and I'm okay, I'm talking trash and I don't have $1 million, right? But at the same time, as much money as these folks of color have, how is it hard to raise $20 million, to raise $20 million right. to put something like this in place that would be beneficial for the community as a whole, right? And I was supposed to look this up before I started the show, but there's this white woman who raised $700 million fraudulently, right? You probably know who she is. I can't think, and I want to say it was like
Holmes, last name Holmes. I know you're talking about.
She fraudulently raised like $700 million to start some sort of business.
Theranos, his name.
Theranos. Okay, that was like fake, right? And they trying to do something real, right? Only need like $20 million and only got 3. I'm like, okay. And I don't want to tell wealthy Black people how to spend their money, but Lord help me. Like, I don't, this is something that I think should not have had a problem being funded, particularly what it is that it's trying to do. I don't know. Some of that may be that distrust that you talk about with people in the community. And a lot of it is unfair, right? Some of it is warranted. And then a lot of it, I think is unfair. Right.
The names are Andrew Young, Michael Bender, who's Killer Mike, and then the last person is Ryan Glover.
Yes, okay, that's what it is, right?
They're trying to create a bank, find tech change. So it's good that we say that, so because people can go look them up, find out what's going on. Maybe they might want to donate because they're trying to raise money. So go ahead. Sorry, don't mean to cut you, Sam.
No, it's all good. No,
I'm glad you said it. Like, I mean, so let's talk about that, because if people, because again, like, and when like I'm saying, like, I had my own office when COVID happened. I basically was like, I ain't gonna go meet with nobody, right? Like, I just wouldn't go to work, right? It's people were calling me and they wanted to come see me, but I'm like, I ain't going to see you. Figure out how to put Zoom on your phone, and and that kind, and that, it affected my business in a way, but I like, my overhead is not that high, so I can still exist, kind of thing. But I can see how a lot of people ended up, like, just completely going under. Whereas, like, if you could have just had some sort of situation that you got a little loan to kind of carry you over, because it's not that the business doesn't have value or that you can't make money from it. You just kind of need to pause, make some adjustments, you know what I mean? Probably bring in better technology, that type of stuff, in order for you to, have it practice. But you start that PPP application and you can't even get through it, right? Because they're asking all this stuff, and then they threaten to arrest you for fraud, and you be like, what? And so you just no. But then there's a guy in Miami that got like $4 million, and he went and bought like a Lamborghini or some other crazy stuff. I'm like, how he got 4 million and I could barely get like 4,000?
He didn't just once, he did it twice. He applied for it twice. He didn't just do it once, he did it twice.
Okay. So we don't trust each other, but even if we're trying to do things like normally, we can't even get the help. So don't, like, the part about us not trusting each other and we don't want to work together, that ain't even like our real problem. That's like the next problem. That ain't even like the top problem, right? The problem is that if you have a business and you've been making money, you should be able to go to the bank and get some money, but you're not able to get that. So that's one point that I want to make. So you can speak on that.
Yeah.
And that I have one of my little theories about it is, like, the Black people that tend to have money I ain't gonna say they shouldn't be the ones with money, but they're not the ones with money that you would expect to help. It's gonna come off bad. Ain't no way for me to say it and it not sound bad. I'm a
say it, girl.
Okay, so we tend to have, like, the wealthy folks, I don't know, wealthy, rich, whatever word, because there's a difference, but whatever word you want to use, folks with money in communities of color tend to be like, athletes, musicians, and, some of them take a class to learn about stuff, and a lot of them don't, right? They just have a gift from God. They were able to make a whole bunch of money from it, but, like, they don't learn enough that they really do or really should, kind of give back, right? They rather go buy a chain that costs $1 million instead of helping this brother out that's trying to, have a bank. Okay, I'm gonna stop. Let's let the real academic talk about this.
And I love brother, Andrew Young and what Killer Mike's trying to do. That they're down for our community. One of the, and I haven't looked into the details of the bank. One of the reasons why I haven't even looked at it, because no shade at it, but it's not the next gen strategy to help with Black wealth creation. So that's why I haven't even taken a peek at it. Though I see the blurbs that come across the internet, what have you, and some on social media. This is what a fundamental problem. And I appreciate what Killer Mike's trying to do and what these brothers who are entertainers are trying to do and uplift our community. But we have to have a bigger strategy about capital. And so just because you have a bank does not necessarily mean that you're doing something groundbreaking with capital. Where I would have liked for him to go down, if I was advising him and Andrew Young, was getting access to private equity capital and resources, which can go much further. Or he takes that bank and turn it into which is resources for a CDFI, community development financial institution. There's tons of government resources to fund that bank. And then he can go get money from the bigger banks to support that. As a matter of fact, Robert F. Smith talked about, as one of his ideas on how to help the banking issues, is that all the big private equity firms, all the big investment bank companies, to commit 2% to go into these types of banks and businesses. And so I think I would prefer to see him do investment banking and not community banking. And there's a difference where it's wonderful. And there's a good book, to The Color of Money. It's a really good book that gets into the history of Black banks. I have brothers, Morehouse brothers in particular, who were ride or die with some of the major Black banks throughout the country. But our capital strategy has to be congruent with our business strategy. I'll just be frank, if you got to go to a bank to get a loan, you're not creating a business The businesses that's going to have crazy growth that then you can go to the bank and get plenty of money later is those things we're going to need venture capital and or private equity. Okay. And so we have to be more sharp. I'm not saying they're not, I haven't read it, this is not a criticism, but we have to be more sharp understanding value proposition of our business. What's the value proposition of creating a bank in 2020 or soon to be 2021? And then I get we are underbanked, we are underinvested in as a community. There are more strategic ways that we can actually go about fixing that. So maybe it's a part of the plan. Maybe they're just a startup. So every startup is ugly in the beginning. And so they're still getting started. I pray that they can get some board of directors. And I know Black Atlanta, and I know people who know Andrew Young, Black folks who are on the board of some banks in Atlanta that can help these brothers. And I hope they get their support. And I hope they can get the advice, because unfortunately, we have these really cool ideas that make a lot of headway, but we're not doing the real work to make something of real strong value.
It might sound good because, it sounds like it's like in a real development stage. It could be something that's really in the development stage. And sometimes it might sound good when you're thinking about it. And then when you actually try to execute it, you realize that, it's not going to look the way you thought it was going to look in your head for all different types of reasons. But the main point that I wanted to make is like, how they can't get $20 million. Like, I just don't understand. Like, that don't, it just don't sound like a whole bunch of money.
They can go right to Morehouse and get all those brothers working on Wall Street, Morehouse and Spelman and Clark and Morris Brown, all them Black folks working on Wall Street. They can raise that in 10 minutes. There's a bunch of Black folks on Wall Street can get that money raised. And so as an example, banking policy changed in about 2008 under Obama administration. There's a rule that banks have to give about 3% to these types of funds, by the way, that maybe they don't know about, but there's a rule. They can go straight to these banks and say, give me that 3% that you have to put into these types of business, these types of banks or businesses. So I just don't know working with it.
And I'm even thinking, when you were talking about venture capitalists, I have a classmate from undergrad that, he has a building at our school named after him, right? Like, it's a brother, he donated a whole bunch of money. They put his name on the building and, all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm thinking, like, okay, so they have money to, like, get their name on the building, and these people having a hard time. So I don't know. So it must be some other things with that, but that we definitely need to do better to kind of help, like, smaller folks, right? Someone was talking, the stock market hit 30,000 and y'all friend 45 came out and talked for a minute, taking credit for all of that. And then another person made another one of my friends.
Our friend.
She's not claiming him, but she want to push him
my president.
He's all our president, right?
He's not mine. So another one of my classmates was talking about, like, if trickle-down economics worked, you know what I mean? It wouldn't be like people at food banks, and it wouldn't be 778,000 people that was filing for unemployment last week, right? Because even if it worked a little bit, we shouldn't have $30,000 stock market numbers and folks, going to get food, and other folks, getting unemployed, and then they're trying to cut off other folks' food stamp like next month, because so it's just like a whole lot going on. So people of color really have to figure out a way to take care of themselves, right? Because, like, well, Biden Harris is going to make some changes.
Yes.
Depending on how deep a hole they're going to have to dig themselves out of. Because I think Brother Man out there doing some pure nonsense in these last 57 days, right? You know what I mean? He's doing some pure nonsense. But hopefully they'll do something where you can, tap into this. Because, just from that article we read, you just gave us some information that would get them $20 million, like you said, in 10 minutes. Like, I hope they listening. Somebody need to share this video with them and tell them they need to go.
I know Andrew Young's people, by the way, but anyway, nobody called me, but
and I just want to be a little bit more deliberate. I know last week we had Miss Wells on, Nakasha Wells on, and one of the things that she was deliberate about saying is that, while we say people of color, we really need to start being deliberate by saying Black people, because our people, our community, our family, we're a village. We need to start really making sure that we take care of us, right? And so while the people of color, Hispanics, brown people, they have a coalition together, and they're really cohesive group. We need to be that cohesive group as well. So one of the things I want to say, Dr. Ford, is are you deliberate in what you're doing in terms of the incubators, the partnerships, the working with the universities? And also working with the policies in the Biden-Harris administration, as well as, are we deliberately saying specifically Black Black people and the 3% that you mentioned about, okay, can you give us the 3? Is that deliberate for our people? And I just want to be very strategic when doing that, because we talked about strategy.
Yeah, so I'll give specifics on the Biden, and then I'll kind of speak broadly. So, and then also what I'm doing currently. So on the Biden campaign, and one of the things I was very sensitive about in terms of policy advice because I worked in an administration where we just started lumping everybody as minorities. And the problem that the campaign had, which became clear here in South Florida, especially Dade County, you have to be precise with your policies. We got to say Black folks. You got, when you're talking about, if you want to talk about Hispanics, you got to break that down and be specific. You got to, even with Black folks, we got to talk about Black Americans, Caribbean. We got to be very specific. And that's what's been somewhat of a lesson learned for the Democratic Party. So what I have done intentionally and legally in terms of the work I do at FIU, it just so happens right now, I have graduate students work for me, all of them so happen to be Black. And it wasn't like that originally. I had well mixed, but when I go recruiting, the brothers want to come up and talk, and so I've been able to pay for 3 brothers' education, getting their graduate education, and so and more. And I've helped some Latinas and all those out as well. But I'm intentional. The first program I did when I first got here to South Florida was with the Broward County Black Chamber of Commerce. I did a couple of series with the sisters running that program, and I've been intentional to make sure this messaging get out to the Black community. I'm working on programs right now and policies that are specifically targeted to Black founders, Black businesses. So as an example, there's the South Florida Black Prosperity Initiative. And I have been reaching out to the brother, G. Gordon, I forget the brother's name, that's running that through the Beacon Council, but I am intentional in targeted messaging to Black entrepreneurs and those who have relationships. When I give some talks on this subject, I actually put in front of the audience Black civil rights era policies that actually laid the foundation for everything we're doing right now. And then I juxtapose it to how the tech community and venture capital community grew while we were still marching and trying to get everybody else's rights for them. So I am intentional. The challenges, though, I would tell you with that messaging is that it was really important part you mentioned, that this whole benign neglect theories it's so endemic now, where everything's lumped as minority right now. And minority is starting to shift. Now LGBTQ is a minority, the accepted minority group. And I have no issues with that community or that segment, but what I have problems with, and I spoke up about this on the campaign, that you have to separate those issues. You can't be lumping that. You've never, I mean, if anyone's about that ilk, no shade to you, but you never were enslaved. You never were, you were never considered a permanent underclass. And so I am very sensitive to that, which is, if we're to your point about being intentional, we have to be careful about how we build alliances. I'm very, I wasn't pleased. I'm happy for the Black Lives Matter movement and what it's accomplishing, but I'm not pleased with some of the way they're starting to blur lines with some of their priorities and how they're building out their different segments of support. There is some confusion about how we're going to deal with our LGBT community in this discussion, and we need to be about Black. Be about Black and not these other issues, and be focused on Black if we're going to be about Black. So it is a tough challenge in terms of being intentional, but I've been focused on it, and all we can do is just keep pushing it.
Right. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because Sandra and I have had countless conversations about the LGBTQ plus community and the difference between the Black minority group and their group.
But there are Black people and people of color in that group, so
right. Well, and one of the things that I've said is that I believe that your race comes first, and then how you identify comes second, in my opinion. And that's just my lowly opinion. And that doesn't mean I have anything against the LGBTQ plus group. I believe that they deserve, and if they fight for what they want as a group collectively, I believe that they should get what they need. However, there is a big difference between Black minority people and the LGBTQ plus group. Their needs and wants are different in terms of what exactly they're asking for. With us is to me is different. So I always want to make sure that there is a distinction, and with their group, they do specifically want to be have a distinction. They want to be separate. And it's in the sense of, what they're asking for and what they need and what policies they want to push. And it has something to do around their group and what they want. We have our thing, we have specific things that we want as well. So I think what I'm saying is that the government somehow has lumped all these minority groups together.
Yep.
And rather than piecing them out and getting everybody has individual needs, right? And so when you put us all under one umbrella, then the lines become blurred and skewed, and then what policy would be for one group doesn't really necessarily benefit that group. Then they have to go out and ask for more. And so I think there needs to be a distinction of what
another thing tends to happen is that, you know, we have to always remember that we're dealing with people, and, you know, implicit biases come into play. Because, you know, during this whole campaign season, I know right before the primaries, there was a white female running for state attorney, and she was like, I'm a minority too, right? And then we had another one, you know, running for another, and I'm a minority too, and I'm sitting there like, okay, you know what I mean? And that very well may be the case, but you know, you could still walk in the room and get a whole bunch of stuff that somebody with some brown skin not gonna get, right? So again, I understand, you know,
this is what I was talking about. This is exactly what I was talking about a few weeks ago. We had Laura on. There has to be a distinction between when we're talking about being Black and being a woman. You know, she was, and I don't necessarily want to have the whole conversation all over again, especially when she's not on here. But we were talking about, you know, trying to see eye to eye, you know, Black women and white women. We're not necessarily going to see eye to eye, because at the end of the day, their concern is from a woman's perspective, and we can't even get to that. That's secondary for us. You know, for us, our priority is addressing our Blackness. And then once we address the needs of our Blackness, now we could get, you know, to the needs of us as a woman. And so, you know, when we were having that conversation about, you know, misogyny, like that's not necessarily our concern, you know, off the bat, you know, that's not necessarily our concern. So I definitely, you know, can appreciate that. We have to be very specific when we're talking about, when we're talking about policy. Everything has to be specific. Now, I know, for me, I am extremely racially sensitive. I can see racism in anything. I mean, it's just plain and simple. There is the other commercial that we were talking about before we got on. I couldn't remember what it is, and I still can't. But there is a commercial that irritates me every time it comes on. It irritates me every time it comes on, and it's a Lysol commercial. And nobody else is probably irritated about this Lysol commercial. It's the cutest little commercial. It has kids in it, and it's adorable. The kids with their masks on, and they're showing a little socially distance, and them washing their hands, and them raising their hand, and their teacher's wearing a mask, and they're wearing a mask, and it's an adorable commercial. There's like 6 different children on this commercial, okay? One Black kid, that's not the problem. The one Black girl in the commercial is the one who needs constant reminders that she has to wash her hands. None of the other kids need constant reminders that they need to. Lisa.
And they label that child as saying constant reminder.
Correct. So this commercial, they have all these kids that seem to know exactly what to do, you know, with the socially distancing and wearing the mask, but the one Black kid needs constant reminders. And her name is Lisa. And I remember that because my sister's name is Lisa. And then there's Lisa, who needs constant reminders so she's looking at the poster that reminds her to wash her hands. You know, that to me, come on now. And so where everybody else might be applauding, oh yeah, there's a Black kid in this commercial. I'm like, why she got to be the dumb one in the commercial? And so, and you know, so I see, I'm very, very, very racially sensitive. So yeah, we have to be very specific. I watch a lot of, before I got addicted to Dateline in the last few days, I've been binging on Hallmark Christmas movies. You know, it was just within the last 2 years that they started introducing Black people characters, and usually it was the grandma or the nanny or the older Black friend who that person knew from growing up, and you know,
never the featured actor was Black.
That's new. That's recent. And then they had to slowly introduce it to where it's a Black woman and a white guy, or a Black guy. So there can't be two Black people. And I just saw one recently with Holly Robinson Peete, where it was a Black woman and a Black guy. And I was like, thank you. And I think there's another one out there like that. But we have to stop, thinking that, we've arrived, they create some policy, they create some legislature, and it gives us in the door. No. We're not looking to just be in the door. We're looking to be at the head of the class. And so we have to be very specific when we're asking for something. We can't just ask for Black kids to be in Lysol commercials. They can't be. No, give us more than that. Don't make them the dumb kid in the Lysol commercial. You know what I'm trying to say? So we have to be very specific for what we're asking for, and we have to stop settling for whatever's given to us.
And so,
I'm like this CARES Act. They're gonna give us some BS that's nothing close to what we need, and we're gonna be like, oh, thank you. No. And I won't dare mention the Chitlin thing again, because Sandra went ballistic when I mentioned that before. But we have to stop, settling for scraps and being like, thank you so much.
So
thank you.
So part of that, Carol, part of that, the reason why that happens is because we're not in a room where it happens, right? Yeah. That's why it is. We're not in a room where it happens. At the end of the day, and you can see it, and you be like, ain't nobody Black was in that room when they made that commercial, right? Like it wasn't even no Black editor. And if it was one of the ones who be like, listen, I'm just trying to get this check. I got some mortgage payments to make, and then that's it, right? Like, because I'm not, so it's not, so I shouldn't just say was nobody Black in the room, because sometimes it could be somebody Black in the room, but that Black person has financial priorities that they be like, listen, I'm gonna just shut up, do my job, and I'm walking out the door, right? But one of the things that we need to understand is that television is terrible. It's really bad for you, and they have some very horrible messages, and they do it all the time. And that, how they and the racism in it is extremely insidious, and you got to be careful what you're consuming, right? I'm telling you, I was watching something the other day, and that show got a whole bunch of Black people in it, and and they did. I'm like, good Lord. And most people will watch it, right? They'll watch the show and not see the damage that's being done in the messages that they're sending, right? Because, they give these Black actors these roles, they give them these positions of power, and then they get there's some weakness in it. It was one example I wanted to give a few weeks back that I didn't. I'm going to make that point, and then we're going to get off this TV thing. But I really do want to make a point that folks need to be real careful what it is that they're allowing their children to consume. And even when they're consuming it, they have to pay attention to what it is that they're seeing, right? So there's a very popular show, This Is Us, that's on right now. Sterling, what's his, I know his last name, P. Sterling, K. Sterling, what's his name? Oh my God. It's the Black guy on the show, This Is Us.
Oh yeah. I know you're talking K. Sterling. I know you're talking. Yes, I know you're
talking like him, right?
Yep.
So there's something that happened in that show where his brother, because they were all born, he's adopted. His brother said, the white brother said, the worst day of my life was the day my parents brought you home. Yeah, Sterling K. Brown. That's right. Someone just put in the chat. Listen. That right there, I don't even know how they're gonna write an episode that's gonna make that okay, right? Yeah. And I'm just like, there's no way they had a Black person sitting at that table with these writers when they wrote that, for them to be able to say that they're going to be able to fix that statement. You're not going to be able to fix it. Like, they're going to do some nonsense with it and try to make it seem like they can reconcile and that's going to be okay. But in real life, there's some words that you use and you say to people that you can't come back from, right? That's one of those things where you can't come back from. And then I'm watching something else yesterday, and we shouldn't be. I'm gonna talk. There's a show, All Rise. Simone Missick is in it. Great show. On it as she a judge.
I love that.
There's an incident because they talked about the protesting, right? Because she had an issue with the protesting where her friend had asked her, like, "What did you do?" And she was like, "What you mean? What did I do? Why you ask this cop what he did?" Right. So that's another thing we have. Is
her best friend who happens to be a white guy.
Her best white friend
said, "What did you do?
What did you do?" And she's like, "What you mean? What I did? You ain't ask." So that's one part of it, right? But then at that same protest, there was a white defendant that was on trial for taking out a bat and killing some people or something like that. Whatever. He killed the folks. They tried to make it a hate crime. She said no. But what they did do is, like, there's a possibility that this guy has like a mental illness or whatever. And that's why he came out and used this bat. And then he ends up getting probation. There's also a hint that his parents may have known that he had some sort of mental illness, right? And I'm just like, I was about to curse, so I had to pause. Those messages are dangerous, right? Because Black people, we got a whole bunch of problems, we got a whole bunch of trauma, right? And if we do something, we still have to deal with the consequences of our behavior, right? And if it was a Black parent who knew that they had a child that was a little off and didn't do nothing, they're like, well, you knew he was a little off, you should have did something, and because you didn't do nothing, he has to pay the consequences. That's what would have
got to the parent too for civil.
Yes, they would have hold the parents. They were like, it's not like you ain't know you was having these headaches that was making you act all crazy. You just ignored it, and because you ignored it, we still have to hold you responsible, right? So that's what would have happened to a person of color. But they're doing this show, making you feel sympathetic for this dude that just killed 2 people. You know, and that's what we got to be. That's why television is, like I said, is terrible. Yeah. Those messages, like, and I'm saying that to get to a point that's being made in the chat about like why Black folks don't trust each other, why we can't work together, and those things. Yeah. It's that messaging. Mm-hmm. It's that messaging. They're not just saying it to you in your mouth, with their mouth all the time, but you're getting this message and you're learning these things subconsciously that's affecting how you operate in a particular space, right? And so you have to get some level of self-awareness for you to see that that's what's happening. And if you don't have that self-awareness, you're going to be consuming it. You're going to be out here not trusting Black people, or thinking like when you see somebody Black doing something and there's an interaction between them and someone white, automatically the Black person's at fault, because that's the message we're being told, right? So that's part of it, right? And there's another part of it, right, which is also I have to use an entertainment example with this, is that there's a new thing now that's happening where they're giving a lot of Black talent overall deals, right? They give them overall deals, right? Like, oh, this person just got an overall deal with ABC, or they just got an overall deal with Netflix, and then they give another one an overall deal with the WB or whatever, right? And so when they do that, what happens is that now they can't work together. They can't collaborate on any projects because they have overall deal with their studio, right? And so when they have an overall deal with the studio, everything they do belongs to the studio. So 2 studios can't work on something, right? That's another way that they keep us from bringing all that talent and all that brilliance together, right? So they send you these messages for those who aren't self-aware that can't pick up, right? And then if you kind of hip to the game and they know you could put out some good product out there, they'll be like, let me go ahead and shut this down, lock it in, put it right here in order for them not to be able to collaborate. So that's one of the things that's happening too. And they do it in like I said, I'm using an entertainment example, but it happens in a lot of spaces, Like they take you, they put you here, and they take the other with the competitor and find ways to keep them from working together. So that's part of why I think, there's always a messaging of distrust, right? It's messaging of distrust. There's always a messaging that we're not good enough, right? Like the Lysol commercial, like this girl ain't smart enough in the middle of the Rona to not know that she need to be washing her hands. My daughter's on the autism spectrum. You come close to her, she be like COVID out there. You know what I mean? She's like, she gonna be like, why you in my face? You ain't got no mask on, COVID out there, right? And she's on the spectrum and she could figure this out. So you gonna tell me some kid in the class ain't gonna know that she need to wash her hand? So it's all that messaging that's creating this level of distrust in our own community and making us not work together, or the not only distrust, the inadequacy that, oh, we're not smart enough, we're not good enough. And Dr. Ford, he's a professor, he's an academic, so am I. I go into classrooms and students be thinking like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I was like, oh, damn. And the thing is, like, of most of my colleagues, I'm the most educated of all my colleagues. In terms of my degrees, the schools I went to, I'm the most educated, whatever. But I don't got to walk around talking like a dictionary for me to know that I'm smart and I know my content, right? So I think they got a problem with the way I speak. And it's not like I can't, I'm not writing a paper, so I don't got to have all them subject-verb agreements and all them conjugations and all that stuff. Like, what are we talking about? I'm trying to make sure you understand what I'm talking about. Right. And sometimes this is how I have to do it. And if, and you have to teach the students that you have. So that's another thing too, right? They don't expect, this dark-skinned woman to come into this classroom to actually know what it is that she's talking about, right? And then even if I do know what I'm talking about, if I'm not delivering it in like, whatever proper standard English is, like whatever that means, right? Because I speak English, I make it clear, you understand what I'm saying, that, there's always like, she can't possibly be smarter than the other lady that was teaching that class because, And I'm like, why? What could be the reason? So check my degrees, right? Like just go ahead, check my record. They speak for themselves, right? So I could not have gotten out of the schools I gotten out to if I didn't know what it is that I was talking about. And then and those of us, we know when we get hired, we got hired because, we was, probably 50 times more qualified than anybody else that applied. That's not always the case, but I'm just saying, right? So we deal with all of these different things because students are taught to not trust us even before they walk in the room, because they're like, it's the white person or the white male, that the one that knows, they're the smart ones, they're the ones that have the experience and all of that kind of stuff. So we're dealing with a lot of really terrible messaging, and that's definitely part of the problem. You know what I mean? So you can comment on that, and then someone's making a point about how we get local folks to people to understand how important it is to have local people running in local races, which I completely agree with them on that.
Yeah, actually, maybe to dovetail. So one of the things that I intentionally do, we have to be aware of everything, the messaging, the negative programming, all these things that support white supremacy. But we have to be able, if those who want to be trailblazers, we have to transcend it. Mm-hmm. We have to rise above it, like Michelle, when they go low, Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. We got to just be better. We still have to be aware, but we have to be better. And here's a narrative shift that can help us attack that messaging issue. You think about the media business model. It's an advertising business model, and what we have to do is get more Black folks owning media companies, owning a piece of the pie, or being C-suite of those marketing companies. My younger sister, who also worked in the Obama administration, Ph.D. and from Harvard, super smart girl. She has dedicated her career to helping with these messaging issues with big media companies. She works with Netflix, she works with YouTube right now. And she shared with me anecdotally of the issues that occur in those rooms. And the problem, and this is what her and I have talked about offline, in terms of outside of her business realm, is we just don't see enough Black folks owning media companies or be at a significant place within the supply chain. The good part about Netflix is that you got a sister married to the CEO, and so she tell her brother man to make investments to Black schools and UNCF and so forth. So we got to understand the business model and own more pieces of it. One thing is, I think we will be better with each other to address the issue in terms of how we get to the root cause. The reason why we have some of the partnering issues, because oftentimes we don't own the deal. Mm-hmm. And we get into this crab in the bucket mentality. We don't know, we're afraid, we're in a tokenized scarcity and mentality, where if we get Black folks who understand how to own a deal, how to understand their value proposition in a particular space, and then secondly, owning an expertise that's difficult to replicate. What I do, one of the reasons I can go work wherever I work is because I have a very difficult expertise. That don't matter if you're white, Black, Chinese, I don't care what your race is. This is hard. This is very difficult. Mm-hmm. And so if we own our expertise and have a value proposition that can be appreciably marketed in the marketplace, we can then transcend and be confident of our value. Yeah, we'll have some challenges, as described because of the system, but by and large, I've done a lot of business with folks that don't look like me because at the end of the day, they see the value. And so we can start increasing our value proposition and owning our expertise, and especially within the media space, which you raised earlier, Sandra, with these sisters and brothers who are doing these all-in-one deals, what have you. God rest Prince's soul. That brother owned his intellectual property. Yes, he did. We gotta own our genius, own our brilliance, and then market it and sell it. That's why I love Beyonce, Jay-Z. I don't necessarily agree with everything they're putting out, but I love the fact they own their brand as much as someone in that space can own their brand. They're trying to do better and good. I don't agree with everything, but I love the fact that they're owners of what they're trying to do. So if we can own more, I think we could start creating some new experiences. I think we all been raked over the coals by a brother or sister sometime in business, but we can create some positive experiences by owning more and having better value and owning our value. I think we'll start to see some solutions to that.
I want to go back over. Something you said that I didn't even that you might not have even realized what you said. You were talking about the wife of the CEO of Netflix is a sister. So I wonder if this explains the article that I read yesterday. I read this article yesterday about Dave Chappelle, the Dave Chappelle show no longer streaming on Netflix. It was on there a couple of days ago because my husband was streaming it. Yep. But apparently now, because apparently he wasn't getting paid. So he no longer, like, he sold the rights to that show.
Yeah, he said that on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah. Hilarious. So he went to Netflix and said, I don't want my show in here because I'm not getting paid. Netflix took it off.
Yeah. That's right.
Like, Netflix was like, you know what? We respect that. And so it go, number one, okay, so he's married to a Black woman. Okay, that's awesome. And number two, you said something about we have to own, we have to own our expertise, and we have to have something of value to bring to the table so people hear us. And that is amazing. I mean, I think those two things that you kind of talked about back to back, and obviously not on purpose, I think that speaks directly to what happened with Dave Chappelle. Like, he literally went to Netflix, was like, I don't want my show streaming on here because I'm not getting paid for it. And they were like, no problem. And they took it down. Yeah. Like, I mean, how does that even happen?
That brother is free. That brother is free. I love Dave Chappelle. That brother is free and own it. He owns it. So
I love that. I know that Sandra wanted to get off of entertainment, but I really want to kind of go back.
I love entertainment. But Jody asked the question, why wasn't he getting paid? Because usually when people do like movies or shows or whatever, they get most of the money up front. If it goes into syndication, they start making less and less and less and less. So
he sold the rights to the show.
Gonna get out of it, yeah.
And he got paid for it. He like sold the rights to the show, and then all of a sudden it's on Netflix streaming, and it has this new audience. And because he sold, I don't want to say that he no longer owned the rights to the show or something.
I don't know if he necessarily did, but it's just the way they do the payout. Like, the more it's out there and the longer it's out there, the less and less and less they.
Well, science. Let's bring up. So this is one of the areas I work on: intellectual property monetization. So that was in the bio. Media, tons of intellectual property in media. Yeah. And so I would be curious to look at the text, the IP deal that Dave Chappelle had. I bring up Seinfeld. Seinfeld was on for Jerry Seinfeld's show. Seinfeld was on for maybe 9 years.
Something that I've seen every episode of about 100 times, but I digress.
He's still collecting checks from that today.
You get what?
He's still collecting checks.
Oh yeah.
Copyright law exists for your entire life plus 70 years, by the way. So I'm just saying, like, that he did one show. He was obviously a great comedian. Did one show. He does Netflix show. He loves cars. Yeah. He owns a specific brand of comedy, similar to Dave Chappelle. And then Chappelle, unfortunately, when he walked away from the deal, I'll be curious what was in that deal when he walked away from. Hence, maybe why his show has been sold to HBO and to Netflix in some way. So
but back to what Sandra is saying, and Dr. Ford as well as Carol, we need to be deliberate. Number one, we need to be strategic. And then the other thing is that, which is, you brought it home, Dr. Ford, is that we need to own everything that we do. And I think that we are in a space and time now where we have a lot of opportunity to do that. I know in the past there was a lot of roadblocks, but now we do have the opportunity to do that. And I think that with your business incubators and these these funds that are out there that are untapped that we can touch, is a very, very good way for us to kind of bring that momentum coming and try to grasp that. I've always said that to Sandra, and I think I mentioned to Carol a couple of times, there's so much out there for us that, and they're banking on us to be completely distracted. They try to keep us dumbed down and docile, and we don't get the opportunity. Well, it's not that we don't get the opportunity, they keep us distracted, they keep us away from it. Spaces that you said, Dr. Ford, that sometimes you're the only one in those spaces, that speaks volumes, right? One of the things about, keeping us away, one of the things is that they assume that Black people are not that bright to be in these spaces, and therefore we get ignored. And I keep telling everyone, every person I speak to, this is our time. 2020, if 2020 ain't teach you nothing, it taught us that when we come together as we did with these past few months from all the tragedies that were just, constantly inundating us on television with unarmed Black men and women, we know that we are a force to be reckoned with, right? And it's important that we seize the moment. I don't want this moment to stop. That's why Sandra and I started this talk every Wednesday, because it was brought out of Breonna Taylor, and it was brought out because the now governor here in Florida is basically trying to make our right to protest illegal. And it's always something that has to do with us. And one of the other things that I always state, and I think we had that conversation with me, your wife and I, is that when we win, when Black people win, everybody benefits. Everybody benefits, all races, all genders, all sexualities, everybody benefits. So for us, I think that we need to continue to push our agenda, because at the end of the day, everybody benefits. And I want it to be clear that people need to understand that every policy that arise from Black people, for us to just get the bare minimum, everybody partake in that, everyone. Now you have people walking around here and saying, I'm not wearing a mask because that's my civil rights, and bring up the civil rights of 1965. And it's like, it has nothing to do with you. Right. But okay, you want to use it, go, by all means, go ahead. But the point I'm trying to drive home is that we can't stop. We got to continue on. We got to get this money that's sitting out here for us. We got to demand that, go into these places. Dr. Ford, I didn't even know you can go into these banking institutions and say, hey, where's that 3%? Like, these things need to, we need to know this. We need
to my 7 acres and my mule too. I want everything that's coming to me.
All of it.
And I still want my student loans paid off.
Listen, okay. So I am, and that's the other thing that's I'm trying to segue into the races that are coming up in January.
Before we segue into that, I want to go into the chat for a minute. So Jody, my friend Jody is putting a few things in there, and one of the things that she put is hashtags, and you were talking about
we came together.
Taught us is that we need to come together, and she put, did we really come together though? And then she indicated that hashtags and looting isn't coming together, and we all agree that looting and protesting are two different things. And unfortunately, people tend to put them.
Let me interrupt you a little bit. So that looting thing, right? See, we talked about that image and that marketing and the way they say stuff, they want y'all to think that folks was out there looting, like it was probably 15,000 people out there. 1 or 2 people did some junk, and they're going to negate the fact that 14,990 people was behaving properly.
Not only that, but it was proven that the people that were looting were planted. They were from different groups, and they were planted by the other side. That's one thing.
So that's one of the things I could agree with 45 on. Is sometimes that stuff that the media be talking about is a bunch of nonsense, right? And they don't tell it. And and then even like, remember when the guy got killed in Atlanta and the Wendy's got burned down? Yeah. They were trying to make it seem like somebody Black did that. No, a white chick burned that whole Wendy's down. Okay, but I will tell you that part, right? Yeah. So like, let's not let them. And that's a whole part of that division. Right, it's messaging is always like, we out here doing crazy stuff, we out here killing. Okay, listen, so now they talking about the killing each other stuff. That's that whole Black on Black crime. That's a whole misnomer. People kill whoever they're around, right? So if you live in a Black neighborhood and you got some Black neighbors and you're gonna kill somebody, you're gonna kill somebody Black. You live in a white neighborhood, you live around some white people and you're gonna kill somebody, you're gonna kill somebody white. Okay,
there's more white people killing.
Part of messaging trying to make it seem as though we out here killing each other. No, you kill your neighbor Black, they're gonna die. That's all that is. Like, don't act like
there's more white on white crime than Black on Black crime, and I know that from
kill each other. I knew that already. We don't call that white on white crime, so we're not doing that.
But the other thing is, and I really want to address that, because I had this conversation with another friend of mine. My thing with Black on Black crime is I'm tired of the conversation. My problem isn't Black people out there killing each other. My problem is somebody who's paid to protect us killing us for being Black. The Black on Black crime is people killing. That's something different. My problem is somebody who is paid to protect me. I can't even call 911 and say somebody breaking into my house. You know what I mean? Without fearing that the police officer is going to kill me for no reason other than the fact that I'm Black. You know what I mean? So that's a problem.
I had a friend of mine a couple months ago had a stranger in her yard. A guy came into her yard and was just chilling in the background, in the backyard. And she was like, I'm not gonna call the police because if I call them, they're gonna kill him. Right? So this dude is in her yard. So she called one of her uncles to say, yo, the guy in the yard, can you come help me get the man out the yard? Because she's like, I don't want to call the police because they're going to come here and they'll probably kill this man. And I don't want to have to deal with that. And that should not happen, right? Yeah. You should not be afraid to call the police to come and help you with the problem, which that is supposed to be their job. But you're afraid, which is, and the fact that that's a possibility is problematic anyway. And I'm telling you, she did not. She called her uncles and her cousins or something, and they came to the house and they got the guy. They gave him something. Somebody, the neighbor brought him a sandwich. They got him like a shirt or something and let him go on about his way and left. But they refused to call the police.
That's crazy.
The police is gonna come here and kill this guy. That is bananas.
Or kill her. If the guy was white and she was Black, they was gonna kill her because they would have. She was
like, nope, I'm not calling them. And didn't call them.
And now, because the last 4 years has brought us into this space where we are afraid of calling the police officer. We already have Ph.D. from police officers anyway, in the Black community. So now it's just been enhanced, and I'm just happy that we are over this hump and we're coming into a new administration that will
Praise the Lord.
That will hopefully address all our issues. And one of the major things about this new administration is, in order for them to address these issues, I know that their new policies have to be written and put in place, right? And so this is why I'm segueing into the Georgia races for the Senate. With these two Senate Democrats winning these seats, and I'm putting this into existence, this gives the Biden-Harris administration a better position to, when they're passing policy, they don't, you have that 50%, and then you have first Madam
President of the Senate,
Vice President of the Senate, who gets to go ahead and do the tiebreaker, right? So it's super, super important that we talk about this. And Dr. Ford, please talk about some of the policies that you have helped to get on there, and what does that look like, a Biden-Harris administration for the Black community?
So I spent almost half my life in Atlanta, so I've been working with friends on the campaigns there to make sure. So Georgia has to turn blue, as well as in the Senate. So one of the things that I may have touched on a little bit, I want to reiterate. I was impressed, and this never came up. I'm not saying Obama didn't care about this, and I think he has some different constraints as well. But the Biden-Harris campaign had, for every policy you worked on, you had to have a specific goal of dealing with equity, but also what does it look like for Black community? What does it look like for Latino? And so all these different, each individual groups. Now, I worked in, I won't say everything, I'm not allowed to talk publicly about some of these specifics, but I will tell you the Biden-Harris platform it is definitely transformational and progressive. Some of the things that it was in the campaign rhetoric, he wants to put at least $400 billion to go towards HBCUs, which are in Black communities. Mm-hmm. He has some visions on looking at he has a specific plan on how do you address investment into Black businesses, how do you address everything related to the family, related to affordable housing, childcare, all those things that really support the family. I see one of the comments, someone talking about the family as a foundation. Biden obviously is a out front family man, and this is part of his ethos as a man. That came through in how we looked at strategies around policy. So things more specific, I see some things that he's going to help with the recovery. And obviously, the first thing he has to do in parallel is deal with this recovery because of COVID. 2, get businesses up and running. As one of the stats that came up in some of the research we did, Black businesses were in, I think, 91%. It was a crazy number we came across, but relative to white businesses, it was a ridiculous percentage of businesses that were Black-owned were impacted. He has a plan to actually help with Black business get access to more funding, which we talked about, the incubator idea. And then this was a big one that talks about employment. You mentioned this almost 800,000 unemployment numbers that just came out today. Helping folks get retooled and reskilled for the gig economy. the gig economy is going to be a real big part of his platform. So if maybe you're not starting a big tech company, but maybe you got a gig and you can monetize that gig. So what does tax policy need to look like? How will you be treated from tax purposes? What provisions you have in terms of healthcare and unemployment? We talked about unemployment insurance strategies for the gig economy. And so what I'm impressed with, I volunteered, nothing was paid, nor any promises of working in administration. I just wanted to support. I have a belief and hope that this is probably the first president that can really do good by the Black community from a policy and appropriation standpoint. We need Georgia. We need John Ossoff and Reverend Warnock to get elected because they can get the appropriations. It's one thing to pass a policy. You have to get it appropriated, and then the executive branch to execute that appropriation. So I was telling my wife, I have never been this hopeful about our government ever, in my entire life. Even I loved Obama, but being a Black man and Black president, there were some things he just couldn't do being aggressively, but Biden can. And Biden knows how to work it. That's the thing. He knows how to work that system. He is a guru. This will probably be the most effective executive branch we've ever had, which I'm excited about.
For like 40 something years. So that should count for something. He been around them dudes a long time. You need to know how that works.
Absolutely. And it's not taking away from Obama at all, because let's face it, you had a Republican Senate and a Republican House, and very, very difficult for him to pass things. And Mitch McConnell made it very, very clear that he was not letting anything go.
Biden is coming in with way more experience than Obama had. Biden is coming in with, just way more experience, period. You know what I mean? So that should make a difference.
And we don't.
Another Black woman, and there's no one more brilliant than a Black woman, and let's not even pretend. Okay, so
amen. So we got to also not only think about Georgia, but also think about 2022, because if we get control of the Senate, we have the White House, we got the House, we lost some seats. I'm worried the same thing happened to Obama, that 2022 can be another red wave. And so if he gets 4 years where he can get policies implemented, we're going to see some groundbreaking change. So we got to think strategically with those, because we lost, I think, 18 seats or so in the House. So we got to, we can't let up. Bottom line, what I'm saying, we just cannot let up.
Absolutely. And so the Senate is where it's at. We have these two coming in, I believe, early voting. What you have.
The ballots went out already. The
ballots went out already, but they still can request until December
17th or something. They can start voting on December 17th.
But they can still request their ballots up until December 5th, right? So it's important that everybody who's in Georgia, please, please, please request your ballots as we go into this wonderful Thanksgiving time tomorrow. Let's thank and give. And
thank you, Georgia, for going blue.
Thank you, Georgia, for going blue. We just want you to continue on that momentum, right? And we want to make sure that we elect those two senators to keep it going. And remember, I can't stress this enough. When Black people win, everybody benefits, okay? When we push policy, everything we do for us, but we realize that it's always open and it's always available to everyone else, right? Because what it is just for everyone else who is not Black, is just icing on a cake for them. And we just really need to make sure that we get those two senators in there, and we are able to establish what the Biden-Harris view is for us. I am very, very confident and hopeful that we will see some big changes for us. And like I said, this is our time. We need to seize the moment. And I hope Dr. Ford, we can be able to get more information. We can be blast out there for people to kind of learn about those businesses. Also, do you, just a side note, because my kid loves coding, do you know anything, if it's coming up, if they're going to be pushing more for those into schools? Because I know somebody mentioned that in the chat about, what we're doing for local, government holding them accountable, but also in schools. I know that our superintendent here in Broward is really, really big on technology and trying to get everything out there into children's grasp. I just want to know if they're going to be opening this up more, making it more universal, even making it more mandatory, making it like a bona fide class rather than something the kids take on the side. What does that look like?
This is funny. There are things existing now that Broward County can participate in, Broward County and Dade. from plugging my university, FIU, one of my employers, they, Florida University, there's a program where you can actually get connected and get college credit while in high school, and you can pick. There's ways we can customize that. It's just a matter of superintendents and schools being connected to that. And that's one of the challenges sometimes with, executive branches, whether at local levels, is not making those connections to the community. And so there's things there. Biden has already said, he's reiterating this, he is going to provide funding to state and local governments to help, including funding for schools. I didn't get into the K through 12 policy side, that was more on the post-bac level, but one of the things that we got to look at maybe from a community level is, in addition to holding our local elected officials accountable for what we're getting to your point, running for superintendent, for our school board, we have to create a community with entrepreneurs, with educators to wrap our hands around our local schools. That's not happening enough. I've done a few things for some of the local schools, but it's not happening enough. And there are resources, grants that we can go after as a community to actually implement those things. The Department of Labor, as an example, has funding out right now every year that we can help create specialized vocational schools that can help our K through 12 system. But we just got to get folks together talking to each other to solve these problems.
Well, the superintendent has done a lot, has brought a lot of funding to the school. So that's one of the things that people complain about, maybe some other things that he do, but I know they did say that he's brought a lot of grant money and stuff like that.
The only Black superintendent.
Yeah. So that part of it, he definitely did a good job at getting money into the school system. Now, what they did with it when it got there, that's a whole nother conversation. But he was able to get the money there. Thank you so much. We actually was thinking that we were only going to talk for like about 45 minutes today.
one of us has a class tonight at 8:00, the night before Thanksgiving.
Yes, yeah, no, but I mean, Dr. Ford came and schooled us today, gave us some like real good information.
His class is early to be with us, so I want to thank you for that, Dr.
Thank you. Yeah, so
my pleasure to support the team. Everybody got chipped in.
And it's information that's needed. Hopefully, somebody gonna tell those people in Atlanta how to get this $20 million, go to the bank after that 3%, because that was driving me nuts because that ain't making no sense. So apparently they're not talking to the right folks, because if they were talking to you, that would have been done. Would you say they're going to get that money in 10 minutes?
I know this where all the smart people are. They just make a couple of calls. It's a wrap in 10 minutes.
You understand what I'm saying? So that's what we're talking about. That's definitely what we're talking about.
I'm putting a petition out right now to the panel. Dr. Ford mentioned that there was something that was going to be implemented like in the third week of January. And something he's working on is going to be implemented the third week of January. And it was mechanical terms, so I don't recall.
Is it the cohort, the cohort launch?
Yes.
I remember it sounding important. And so I want to make sure that he's invited back. I want to make sure that he's invited back to the panel prior to that, to give us some more information and to let people know what it is that he's doing. And I would like to also say that I would like to welcome him back anytime, because I just don't even believe that we even tapped into an of knowledge that he has that he can provide.
Appreciate that, sisters. Happy to support anytime. I love what y'all doing. My wife got me, y'all was talking about some good stuff, so she got me hooked with what y'all talking about. Y'all and carry on talking to me later, so y'all talk about some good stuff. So
we appreciate it. And I'm probably gonna have my brother call you, because we both got like MBAs from like the University of Florida, like in 2018. And we just did that. And we're dealing with some ageism. You know what I'm saying?
You think you're dealing with ageism? I'm gonna be 54 years old when I get my doctorate. Tell me about ageism. I don't want to hear about ageism.
It's some real ageism out there. Particularly, like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, they're like, no, we need like some 28-year-olds up in here. You might look 28, but you're 8, right? So we're doing some of that. So he's doing a lot of entrepreneur. He's doing, because I don't really call myself an entrepreneur, but I literally been self-employed like since I graduated from like.
Well, there you go.
So I have, and I've managed to I ain't got kicked out my house yet, so I guess I'm doing okay, right? So I don't consider myself an entrepreneur, but in a way, I pretty much am. So I'm actually gonna have him give you a call, because he also he's actually in that tech space. Like, he used to buy and sell domain names, and he managed to support himself for like 12 years doing that too, right? And then he went and got a real job, because that health insurance, boy, I tell you, you be having to go to work.
I'm gonna have to have my son call you too, because
so I'm gonna have him give
happy to.
That 22-year-old think they know everything, so somebody has to explain to them that you may know some things, but not everything. But he's into that technology thing too. Yeah. He's doing some sort of platform, and I just you just curtail him a little bit to.
I'll probably share some plugs. There's a local one entrepreneur I'm supporting here. A Cuban brother has a free certification program in cybersecurity, by the way. Wow. You within 6 months, you come out of there with a certificate that you can get a job. No college degree. Yeah. 6 months, you get a certificate. There's 500,000 unfulfilled cybersecurity jobs in the U.S.
Wow.
I would be interested in that. I put a message in the chat for you, Dr. Ford. I would definitely be interested in that.
Yep. I'll share it. Yep. J. Chris Ford on that Twitter. I am terrible on social. I'm too busy. But yeah, I need to hire someone. But I am on social media, LinkedIn, J. Chris Ford. You'll find me on social media. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm gonna have him and probably see if he'll get into that. Do something with that cohort that you're talking to. I'm starting in January, because and that's that. It's like all these ideas, and we, you do all of these things, and it's like, well, how you fund it? You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. So yeah, and I actually know someone. And I'm probably gonna have her reach out to you too, because she invented something that she's trying to figure out how to market. Also, I think I had Carol speak to her. I connected her with Carol, but maybe something she could reach out to you, and then you can just give some guidance. If that's what you do, when what you work.
That is what I incubate business. No, I have a whole system of.
Yeah,
30-week process, they down, but yeah, we'll get into it.
If that's what you do, just kind of give us some guidance on like how to handle that. So we appreciate that. So this was a political show, right? We talk. This is Democratic stuff, because the Biden-Harris administration is going to come in. They're going to deal with these small businesses. They're going to get this economic situation together. Because we didn't get like a full recession like we did in 2008, like right before Obama was elected. But it is going on. Something's propping up this economy that the bottom didn't fall out before 45 left. But luckily we have someone that's going to come in and kind of clean it up, before we have like 2008 happen all over again, so.
I just, and when we were discussing our group chat, we were like, oh, we no guests this week. We're just going to rip. And I said, no. This is when we just got off the phone, Dr. Ford. I was like, oh, no, got to bring Dr. Ford on here, honey, child. He has to kind of come in and speak to the people, right? And so I had a long conversation with him. Like I told you, Sandra, we were on this group, and I was trying to bounce ideas off of him. And I realized, oh my gosh, he really needs to speak, and he really needs to understand what's at stake here. And so I'm really appreciative at the last minute that you agreed to do this, Dr. Ford. I can't tell you what a wealth of information you are, and we will definitely have to have you back, because there are some things that are coming up in the pipeline that that's in your expertise, and we would like for you to kind of explain that and keep people abreast. We have to stay engaged, and so the goal is to stay engaged, make sure that we give out information as much, because this is our time, and when Black people win, everybody benefits. So
we definitely learned our worth this year, right? Like if there was ever some thought that we add no value to this society and this culture and all of that, that was
that election, and you see how much
the election told it, how people responded, to George Floyd dying, because they was killing folks before, and then when that one happened, the world exploded. The world was like, what? Yeah, what? No, we're not having none of this, right? So we definitely also we probably always knew. For those who didn't know, we definitely know.
I want to add a point to everything you're saying. So we forget about Jim Clyburn out of South Carolina.
Yes.
That saved Biden.
Saved Joe Biden, yes.
And it speaks to local Black politics. That's a powerful, brilliant brother. He just lost his wife recently. And the people don't talk about him much in mainstream, but he's a brilliant, powerful brother. I'm saying we got to support our local congressional members, and we got to, local politics matter. And Clyburn flipped this thing for Biden. And he knows
sure
it.
did. Because he saw it, he saw it. And I have to tell you, I think I told Marnique, I had gone to the Broward Young Dems meeting like last year. It had to be last year. And they did a straw poll for the election. And Biden came in 5th place. I'm like, what these children talking about? Y'all crazy. Like, this dude, he's the one. And I was sitting there like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I was like, 5th place, like, these other folks are not gonna win. Like I just didn't even, and Kamala wasn't even like in the equation, and I just couldn't understand it. I'm like, you guys are missing the point. What we need after what this fool's gonna do at the time is that we need somebody with experience to come in there. Yes, he's old, but you need that experience because this dude is. I'm an attorney that practices immigration law, and I saw what he's done to, like, the things that he's done in immigration. Most people don't see it because unless you're in that space, you don't see what he's doing. I'm like, y'all have no idea what this man is doing. The news is not telling you, like, I can't even say the half. They're not even telling you like 0.1. I mean, they're just not telling it. I'm like, no, you're gonna need someone to know what they're doing to come and clean this mess up. Because
so
a lot of young folks didn't know, but Biden was the person that needed to come here, and I'm glad Clyburn saw it and told South Carolina, y'all need to, all these folks y'all think gonna get up in here, it's not gonna work. And I think he would have picked Amy Klobuchar as his VP had George Floyd not happened, right? Because she was part of that whole Minnesota mess, right? So she ended up having to take her name out of consideration. Yeah. But he to me, it was like it needed to be him,
I have 2 words to add to the 45 immigration conversation. Stephen Miller.
Oh my God, he's gone too. But so we're getting rid of that whole crew of folks. So
everybody got to go.
Lord,
everybody got to go. But this has been a very spirited conversation, very enlightening conversation. Was thoroughly enjoyable. I appreciate Dr. Ford again for the last minute coming on. You have been there's no words to describe how appreciative we are and how much we've learned. Before coming on, we wanted you to break down. Your brilliance was just too much. You had to break it down for us.
He adjusted real quick too. He adjusted. He adjusted. I was like, okay, I'm following you now.
I was like, talk to us like we're 5.
Right.
He got us because he was talking. He thought he was talking to his PhD students. We're like,
right?
Well, man,
that went over our heads. But I have to tell you, there's more of Dr. Floyd. So we don't want to, there's not just one of him. There's a plethora of him. And we want to make sure that going into this new year and going into this new administration, that we come out in full force. So the goal is to stay engaged, stay focused,
Georgia blue.
Deliberate. Pardon?
Deliver the senators in Georgia. So
deliver them senators in Georgia.
The things that they want to do and need to do.
Yep, absolutely. So I want to thank everyone, especially you, Dr. Ford. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You have an open invitation, and we hope that when we do reach out, that you're available. I know that, as we're going in, this might take off, and we may not be able to get no time to fit in with you, but just keep us in your little heart right here. That
we might be too big for him at some point. We gotta see whether we're gonna have him back.
I see y'all having your own show.
And we got Obama on here. We don't have to like Dr. Ford. Who is that?
We'll never forget.
Y'all better start a business. Y'all got a talk show here.
We may have to reach out to you. Do a little bit of incubation, okay? But thank you so much for coming. Sandra and Carol, as usual, it was nice and fun. Next week, we're going to probably be doing just recaps on pushing and reminding people about the Georgia races. I think we're going to, Carol, we're going to figure out a time to kind of pre-record so we can just kind of push that out there. But we want to really push that Georgia race. We're going to be talking about that a lot. And then, you know, depending on what Dr. Ford got going on, we want to push out these incubator times and these, opportunities, because I really want to make sure that we get everybody engaged and involved. And the fact that there is untapped funds and untapped opportunity is disheartening, and that we are not even at the table to have that conversation. So we want to make sure that we open that up to everyone. Thanks again for coming. I want to tell everybody great night. Happy Thanksgiving tomorrow.
Happy Turkey Day.
Happy Turkey Day. Although the history about Turkey Day is not my
you know I ain't say nothing, right? Because
I mean, just for the people who watching, because if y'all celebrate, you know what I'm saying. But the history of the Turkey Day ain't my thing or whatever. That's just my lazy day, and I chill out
fast on that day. I ain't saying.
Wait, y'all chilling out? I'm in here. I've been chopping greens. You not relaxing on Thanksgiving?
You the slave to the Turkey Day, girl. We ain't.
I'm a slave to my husband. I had to cut up 8 bundles of greens. I had to make 6 people.
You about to get mad at me again, Carol, because I'll be like, yeah, you fell for that white man messaging.
Carol, come on back.
The frosting, I got a season, and are you kidding? Y'all relaxing?
No, man, smell like onions right now.
No, ma'am. We don't do Turkey Day. Not me. I mean, I'm a cook, but you know. Somebody says in the comments, happy staying woke day. Yes.
Well, I was asleep.
Janice Sherwood says, happy staying woke day.
Unreal.
We're going to call it the woke day. Happy woke day tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. Happy deliberate day. Happy strategic day. We all about Black people and all about a Black agenda. So happy all of that. Enjoy. All right. Y'all have a good night now.
Take care. We're not doing final thoughts?
No, we ain't got time for that.
All right, then. Okay, bye-bye. Everybody.
All right, now. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night, all.